Hey everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Matt, Christy here with Alonso, and yeah, it's Friday, so we're going to take another look back at the week that just was. Whatever breaking news is happening, some of it might be virus related, some of it might not, but it's all over the map. And as always, Christy has a nice long list of things for us to dig into, but first, Matt's got marquees.
Yes, I got marquees and lots of photos because we've gone beyond mere marquees, but some real good ones this week. So let me share my screen and we will get started on these marquees. All right, so this is the picture from the news story that we'll talk about it a little bit later, but this is the picture that I'm using at the top of the show, or as the title card. This is from a story about the theaters in China are at about 30% capacity. So you can see people in the theater with masks on and separated. The thing that's really irritating, though, is this guy kind of like midway through. This dude, like, come on, man.
Well, I think he's got a beverage in his left hand, so I'll allow it.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
They're not 6 feet apart. They are not, right. Even if there's like a seat in between them, that's only like 3 feet. That's not the proper distancing.
True.
Interesting. Yeah, so half the theaters in China are now open. According to this Variety story that we're talking about, they can be 30% full, which is more than what I think has been proposed in the United States, where they were talking about like 25% capacity, correct?
I'm not sure what the numbers are.
Anyway, and I guess like half the movies are like big Hollywood titles. They're probably going to get Tenet before we are.
Everybody's going to get it before we are.
We'll talk about Tenet eventually.
Oh, yes.
We have Tenet news, as we always do.
As we always do.
Perpetually.
Right. Yes. You know what? The Tenet news is going to end up being like they used to do about Generalissimo Francisco Franco on the news. On
Still
SNL.
Coming out one of these days.
It is still delayed.
Matt Seitz tweeted, "What if the perpetual delay of Tenet is Tenet?"
Mm-hmm. What if Tenet was the friends we made along the way?
The real Tenet was knowledge.
You were wearing Tenet on your feet all along.
Continue.
All right. So next up, we have another picture from, we got a bunch from CJ Cordova in Salt Lake City. He went downtown and says, here's some marquees in downtown Salt Lake City run by the nonprofit Salt Lake Film Society. This is one of their theaters. It says temporary closure. Go to slfs.org for info and to support. So there's a few of those pictures. These are all one of the downtown theaters. Again, this one says go to SLFS movies at home. So presumably you can watch them the way Kino Lorber is doing those. slfsathome.org, support our art house. This is a great picture of the Tower Theater. Love that mid-century modern look. That's a really slick looking building. Go to SLFS shows at home by visiting slfsathome.org. That's a tongue twister.
That's hard to say.
Is that mid-century or is it deco? Like it seems more like kind of a 30s.
I
the way
think
the letters
that's
look.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's probably between, right? I think it's maybe a little bit more mid-century, but who knows? You could be right.
I have a question here. I was just thinking, because I bet you that a lot of these theaters will probably host to the Sundance screenings that take place in January. The satellite screenings that they do in Salt Lake City outside of Park City. And I'm wondering, has Sundance said what's happening this year, like what they're planning to do?
No, all the fall festivals are banding together.
Right.
We have some fall festival news today, but I don't think we've heard about Sundance yet. But I can't imagine that that's going to happen in person, if everyone's
or maybe just Salt Lake and not Park City this year. Like, who knows?
Yeah, maybe. We'll find out. I see they don't have an ampersand, and so they're using the Euro sign.
Nice. It also looks like the Jedi thing,
Yeah, a little bit. All right. Next up, CJ Cordova has sent us some pictures of the local Cinemark there. It's a luxury Cinemark in Sugar House, Utah, just southeast of downtown. Shows us a close-up of their signs, face masks required throughout the theater. Cleanliness now showing everywhere.
I thought they said now shoving everywhere for a second.
Well, you gotta inject the disinfectant.
We're going to shove you, but we'll have gloves on our hands.
So last but not least, CJ Cordova writes, the Villa Theater was shut down years ago before COVID-19 to become a rug store. Last film he saw there was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. And this is in the Holiday/Sugar House area. That is a beautiful, beautiful sign there. And at least somebody kind of kept the building in shape, even though it's not still a theater.
Right.
There are worse things to put there than a carpet store.
Sure, just save your marquee. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next up, this is a picture from Dimitri, who got it from his friend Kristen, who got it from the Screenland Armour in North Kansas City. I have not been there, but I haven't been to see a movie in Kansas City in a long time. But this is a fantastic quote. I wear the mask to protect the people closest to me, Batman. Although, let's keep in mind, Batman's mask is over his eyes. Right, so...
It's the idea of a mask, you know.
Okay. Batman Beyond has the right mask.
Do we know which Kansas City, rather?
I don't.
Okay, just curious.
Don't know. I mean, look, it's all the same metropolitan area. But yes,
So
I've had relatives who will talk
that.
about... Well, listen, I've had relatives talk about, like, especially in the winter, you can tell it's bad because the Kansas side of State Line Drive, the snow removal is really terrible, and it's better on the Missouri side. That's what my relatives say. Don't blame me. It's my crazy ass relatives. So if you're on the Kansas side,
don't get us into a feud here, man.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Next up, some pictures from Geoff Swanson, who sent us pictures before. He's from Minnesota. This is the Skyview Drive-In Theater in Warren, Minnesota, a very small town near where I grew up, he says, in northern Minnesota. It's come back to life this summer. Its marquee is lacking in letters, so they're playing games on social media and giving away prizes to those who can guess what film they're showing. So it's like it's similar to Wheel of Fortune, right? Like you're putting in one or two letters, and then people get to just... The owner also has a cool restored Herbie that he'll park on the lawn right before every showing. In this state, they don't necessarily get the best seasons for drive-in, but when they do, they make it count. That's a great picture of the car right there.
It's a very pretty sunset behind the car.
Yeah, and then here's another view. And yes, they're missing some letters. Maybe we need to get some people to start a GoFundMe to get them a full slate of letters.
There you go.
The whole album.
Okay. Right. So, okay. Next up, we got a bunch of pictures from our Polish friend, Igor Setkowicz. And he's got a bunch of pictures for us. So he says, Dear Christy, Alonso, and Matt, I hope you're doing very well. Waiting for your upcoming movie reviews. Thought I could share a couple new pictures he took of rather old theaters. Twist here is that these are not located in Poland/Krakow, but he took a week-long vacation in Cyprus. These are the pros and cons of our small countries in Europe that you can, on a few-hour flight, change scenery completely, and it usually doesn't cost too much either. It takes just 3 hours to get from Krakow to Cyprus. In Cyprus, COVID situation seems to be relatively under control. They are an island, he says. But he's, of course, careful and flying back home on Sunday. First two places he saw in Nicosia, the country's capital, didn't really see much backstory information on those places. Each seems pretty old, clearly out of business for the last couple of months, probably since March, when the virus hit the world almost at the same time. So this is the Pantheon Art Cinema. He says it's clearly closed down, and he took 3 pictures here.
And the poster they have is of Renee Zellweger in Judy.
In Judy.
Yes. So that's how long ago it was that came out like 6 months ago. More than 6 months ago.
Right. But they might have had a post-Oscar run or something.
Oh.
Right. And then there's a picture you can see for Sama there. And I don't recognize that poster. But
I don't either.
This one he took from outside, he says.
A little popcorn concession stand.
Yeah.
It's empty. It looks very sad.
I know. There's a tumbleweed rolling through.
Exactly. All right. So this next one is also in Nicosia. It's called Xena Palace. Clearly closed down some time ago. We could see some older movie posters hanging outside. Took a couple pictures, again, through the glass, outside.
Come see movies with a warrior princess.
And there's a big projector there in the lobby. It's really cool looking. A big old projector.
And then the
So
third
sad.
I know. The third cinema he got pictures from is in a different city, Limassol. I apologize to anyone who lives there that I'm mispronouncing that name. Located on the southern coast of Cyprus, the venue is called Rio Cinema. This one has pretty cool exterior and more classic marquee. Again, all shut down, and a couple of rather bleak, worn down posters. Ferdinand, that goes way back.
That's like 2 years ago.
I know. Judging from the titles, I'm guessing this place was up and running last time around February or March. In the second picture, there's a really bleak picture. I guess that's not it. He says of Harrison Ford's Call of the Wild. I can see the marquee for that, but I can't really see the poster. That must be it right in there, maybe.
Oh.
Possibly. Anyway.
We'll go back though, Matt. That's a little time capsule there of what was playing. It was Call of the Wild, Sonic.
Right. Brahms the Boy too.
Emma, The Way Back, Invisible Man, and something in Greek.
And then Spies
Onward
in Disguise.
and Spies in Disguise.
Yeah.
What was The Way Back again?
That's Ben Affleck is an alcoholic basketball coach.
Right.
We never reviewed it. It's good.
I need to see.
But wasn't there also was the other movie The Way Back?
The Way Back is the yes.
Steve Carell, and they're on a road trip.
Jim Rash and Nat Faxon,
yeah. So Igor says, that's all. Stay safe, my friends. P.S. Seems that WB's finally set up a date for the release of Tenet. Right? He also is probably getting unhinged before we do, he mentioned.
I told Igor he needs to come back with a full report for us of how Tenet is, because he's going to see it way before we are.
I was going to say, if you're one of our European or anywhere else on the planet viewers that is going to get Tenet before we do, like, we want to hear from you.
Canada will get Tenet.
Oh, really?
Maybe so.
Okay.
That's one of the many countries on the list for August 26th getting Tenet. Yes.
South Korea, I know, and
anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So this is one of the last ones of that same Xena Palace. Or I'm sorry, not the Xena Palace. This is the one in. This is the Rio Cinema. So thank you, Igor, for sending those all along. Okay, next, this is from Rio, the Cine Santa Teresa. ItaloJunior on Twitter sent this to us. This is the community theater of Santa Teresa, a traditional bohemian neighborhood here on Rio de Janeiro. The caption says, "Stay at home, Santa Teresa de Avila, protect us. We be back soon." So, yes.
Cool.
That's a
neat building.
Pretty cool building. Okay, this is a couple more pictures from Mark Francis Dong, who has sent us pictures from the Bay Area before. He says, "Hi guys, more from SF. Unfortunately, the Clay Theater," that's this first picture, in San Francisco, permanently shut down in January of 2020. It had been in operation for 110 years.
Oh, that's sad.
I was hoping to find their last marquee, but found it depressingly blank. That's very sad. It was the first screening of John Waters' Pink Flamingos in 1972.
Wow.
How do you not get that place declared a national landmark? Jesus.
Right? To quote John Waters, "It's very sad to me because San Francisco is one of the first places outside of Baltimore where my films caught on. Pink Flamingos started there, became quite successful there. It was really a help in my career." It also had the world premiere of another cult classic, Lust in the Dust, with Divine and Tab Hunter in 1985, who were there at the opening.
Nice.
Next up, this is the Vogue Theater, opened in 1910 as the Elite Theater, then as the Rex in 1919, and finally as the Vogue in 1939. Still run independently with the Balboa Theater 3 miles away and their virtual screening room online. And the marquee there says, and reminds us, Black Lives Matter. So, Mark, thank you for sending those in. A couple fun ones to finish up the show. This is one I found. It's the marquee on a liquor store. It says, "I like to drink when I work out. I call it Bacardio."
That's totally one of your dad jokes right there.
Totally. Now, have you guys heard about Chicago's The Wieners Circle?
Yes, they have genius marquees.
Right. So the Wieners Circle is also legendary for that. If you go there at night, the employees are amazingly rude. Like sailors come running out of there, can't handle the language.
Like
Terrible,
is that like part of its charm? Like
that's part of the charm. Like you go there,
the thrill ride element of it,
and you get cursed at like crazy. So here is their marquee that was sent in by Ag Pitt, who's sharing it from Sean Collins from the Wiener Circle. Person,
Yes.
woman, man, camera, TV, hot dog.
Hot dog.
Yes, you have 6
There we
words
go.
to remember this time. You got to add
Exactly.
hot dog to it.
And so that's it this week. So thanks everybody for sending those in. Keep them coming.
Those were good.
Those were really good.
Okay, so we have been dancing around Tenet. Here is what Warner Brothers is doing with Tenet.
Dancing around Tenet, it becomes like they shoot horses, don't they?
Yes, we're just whoever's still up at the end wins. So Tenet
Not a sprint,
supposedly now on August 26th, Tenet will open internationally in like dozens of countries, as we mentioned earlier, all over the world. And then supposedly it will open in the United States on Labor Day weekend. So this is all like a month from now. So we'll see. We'll, of course, keep you posted on all of this.
Is Christopher Nolan going to let drive-ins show his precious
There's
piece
no
of
way.
cinema?
There's no way because it won't look as good. I mean, as much fun as the drive-in experience
And the
is,
audio isn't going to be,
No.
I
bet no.
What this tells me, though, is that other countries are getting this first. This just goes to show that this is why we can't have nice things. I mean, because everybody else has figured it out, right? Or not everybody else, but like New Zealand.
Well, and if you're in Poland, you can travel to Cyprus, and if you're in the United States, your passport gets you to very few places right now because nobody wants us.
Canada will not have us. So along the lines of openings, if and when Tenet does open, supposedly here in the United States, Regal says it is opening in mid-August, and I'm still getting, as I'm sure you guys are as well, emails from publicists who have been like pushing movies back, pushing them back. Ones that they had like guaranteed a theatrical opening for, they're now saying like August 20th, this is going to happen finally. So who knows? But aside from that, Cinemark is doing a thing where you can rent out a private theater for $100 for 20 people who supposedly don't have it. And you can't watch Tenet.
For your whole quarantine.
Yeah, you can't see like SpongeBob or Tenet, but they have a slate of films that you can choose from. And it's like Raiders of the Lost Ark and Jurassic Park and I think E.T. is in there. It's like older classic titles that, a wide range of people can go see. They're not showing like last year at Marion Bad. I mean, it's like stuff that you can rent a whole big theater. And it's actually a really good deal.
No, Sean Dillman, forget it.
We have all day. Come on, where are we going? So
Napoleon.
But of course, there's no Cinemark in California. There's a bunch in Texas.
Yes.
I mean, although there are Cinemarks here, but the theaters that are offering this
are not the California
are not the ones
Right.
in California. So anyway, there's that.
And that's actually not a bad idea. Like make some money. People can be in the room. If you have. I mean, here's the thing. I see way too much on social media, like people pretending like this is not a thing. And we're at the beach and we're hanging out. We're hugging on folks at a bar and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that freaks me out. Mm-hmm. But if you are a family of 4 and you have clustered with your next door neighbors that are also a family of 4, and the 8 of you spend $100 to go to a movie theater, that comes out to about what an average ticket would be. And you can have that experience of the projection, whatever, and, bring your own Clorox wipes and, make sure that the room is sanitized to your liking. But, it's not a terrible idea.
It's not. I mean, I'm not necessarily itching to get back to the movies that badly that I would do that. But I think, if you're cooped up and, as you say, you want to do it, it's a nice idea. The Emmys, we had Emmy nominations come out this past week, but also we had the announcement that the Emmys are going to go virtual with, Kimmel hosting them virtually. That makes sense. Netflix
now it's even easier to ignore.
Yes, Netflix had a record 160 nominations for shows like Ozark, which just got canceled. Ozark and The Crown. Watchmen got 26 nominations. Brad Pitt got nominated for playing Dr. Fauci on Saturday Night Live. Mandalorian got a bunch, as did Mrs. America.
Yep.
So of that tremendous cast on Mrs. America, Kate Blanchett, Uzo Adobo, Margot Martindale, Tracy Ullman got nominated.
Yes, I was very excited, and especially about Uzo Aduba, because I was like, she was one that I hope was not going to go under their radar, but I'm glad she did, and that's a great performance. But also, I mean, Blanchett was. This whole thing exists so that Kate Blanchett can have an Emmy, but I'm glad they threw in Tracy Ullman and Margot Martindale as well. Although, did you guys see the op-ed that Gloria Steinem and Eleanor Smeal wrote for the New York Times, where basically they saw some early scripts and they were asked to consult, and they were like, "This is not how any of this happened."
Oh.
Like, they basically talk about how corporations destroyed the ERA because they didn't want to have to pay women an equal amount of money. And then Phyllis Schlafly sort of became the window dressing behind which they hid that. Anyway, it's, there's always a million versions of what really happened in any situation. And the people who didn't make the biopic are always going to complain about the people who did, but it's worth a read.
Did you see, speaking of Emmy nominees, did you guys see the news about Regina King and her feature directorial debut? Is that a story we're going to talk about?
I was going to get to that. I can get to it now. Regina King's directorial debut got picked up by Amazon. It's called One Night in Miami, and it is debuting at Toronto in whatever form that takes. And so they picked that up. That's great. A good week for Regina King.
Yes, right. Toronto is apparently having local screenings, like for Torontonians, basically. But like all the press screenings are going to be online. Okay.
Another industry-ish thing we should talk about, I know, Matt, this interests you because this is a thing that you have dealt with so much, is that Universal and AMC have now come to this agreement. There was this big, ugly standoff between Universal and AMC when Universal said, hey, we kind of like premiering our marquee films online. And AMC said, well, then you're not going to show your movies in our theaters. And they took their ball and they went home. And some very strongly worded letters were exchanged back and forth. No. But now they've agreed to a 17-day window between a theatrical opening and a VOD premiere. Matt, explain why that matters.
That's wild. That's a huge, huge change in the industry, because what it had been previously was that the big three theater companies would insist on at least a 3-month window so that they could, and part of that is because the way the box office works, it's a sliding scale. So for the first weekend, in broad strokes, it's a little bit different with Disney, but for the first weekend, the exhibitor gets half the money and the distributor gets half the money. And then the next week, it shifts in that the exhibitor gets more than half and the studio gets less than half. And it keeps going until finally the exhibitor's getting like 80 to 90%, but that doesn't happen until 3 or 4 weeks in. What's now happening, according to this Universal deal, will be there is no long tail, so to speak. So at least for Universal movies, there's no point in holding those movies and insisting that they have that 3-month window. It's going to be fascinating to watch what Cinemark and Regal does in response to this, because Cinemark immediately came out saying that's an insane idea, basically. There's no world in which they want to participate in that. I can't help but think with AMC's terrible looming bankruptcy that this is potentially as bad as rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic.
It's a shitty deal for AMC.
It is a shitty deal. I think that it's an effort to make it look to potential investors to get potential funding. Like, look, we know that we're in trouble. We're going to do this so that we can, and it may be that they're the only ones who are showing Universal pictures. That's what it looked like when they say exclusive deal, that they're the only ones booking Universal movies. And I think the next step for big news from AMC is that you're going to see them wildly downsize and close a lot of theaters. Now, this would have never happened, I think, or not never. It would have taken a long time for something like this to happen outside of the quarantining that's happening now. But this has accelerated certainly the trouble for AMC because they are just in terrible financial peril, and not being able to show movies is a huge problem for them. So the question is, if the quarantine continues to go on, if we get a second and third wave, they may not even survive to actually implement this strategy, right? So we'll see. But it's huge because it potentially means, a variety of things. Like, what's it going to mean for other studios? Are we going to get to a place where, AMC says to other studios, hey, this is the deal we have. If you're going to show something with us, can they survive on just Universal movies? I don't know. I mean, I could see like cutting a deal like that with somebody with like a Disney, because you totally could, right? Disney's got enough content. There's so much content coming out. I could see that. And I can't help but wonder if Disney is approaching somebody else possibly doing a similar. I mean, that's what I would think if I was Disney, is like, who wants to be our exclusive theatrical showcase partner? Now,
wasn't there news in the last year that they had overturned the Paramount decision, and that now studios would once again be able to own theater chains? I mean,
they have been talking about that.
Is it possible that Disney's just going to buy one, or like? Well,
Disney owns part of Pacific as it is.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that happened. Sorry, my light's falling. So.
Matt, you're so close now.
I know.
We can count all of the hairs in your fantastic beard. Yeah, so we'll see how that shakes out. That is very interesting.
Our friend Kenny Turan had a great tweet about this. He said, what made theaters embrace digital projection? The studios kicked in essential funds. What made AMC agree to shorten the theatrical window? Universal kicked in essential funds. Money talks, and our movie-going future is likely to change.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so other industry news, CAA, the giant talent agency, CAA, is laying off or furloughing nearly 400 people because of the pandemic. I think like 275 of those, I want to say, are office staff, and the rest are agents. But a lot of people have been working from home. Of course, they have that giant building, the CAA Death Star, smack in the middle of Century City. It's interesting to see how office space has changed. I know that we are not a real estate podcast, but I'm fascinated to see how all of our working from home has significantly impacted, the way we traditionally worked and what happens to those spaces. The U.S. Bank building just got sold downtown. This is actually movie related though. Any establishing shot of Los Angeles will show the downtown LA skyline, and that U.S. Bank building is this giant cylindrical building in the middle of it. And for a long time was the tallest building west of the Mississippi. It's no longer.
The one that's it in LA in Independence Day.
Yeah, so they just sold for like hundreds of millions of dollars less than what it was valued at last year. And so people don't have to go to work anymore. This is, I think, what's happening also with CAA.
I'm glad you brought up the CAA in Century City, though, because, that AMC in Century City is some place we often go and see screenings. And we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years, at least the last 4 years, they've been wildly rebuilding that shopping center into a place that they want to have live events and do all this stuff. And I can't help but think, that's yet another real estate venture that investors have thought, okay, we're going to pivot away from retail because the internet's killed it, to experiential. And, nobody can go experience anything right now.
But that's at least an outdoor mall, Matt. Like Beverly Center, I think, is screwed because it's like indoors and enclosed. Like the Grove and the Americana. Anyway, for people outside of LA, this is super boring, I guess. But these are big outdoor malls where you have things to do besides just shop. There's like
once this thing is over, if people realize, it's so easy to have people, work at home or live at work, as they say, then the idea of like, why am I spending all this money on office space? And then if people stop doing that, what happens to all those offices? Like, what do they get turned into? Like, low income housing is my vote, but like, I have no idea. We're looking at a paradigm shift in so many facets of how we live and where we go and what we do in our day-to-day life. It's staggering.
It is. Okay, let's get back to movie news. Chloe Zhao's new movie starring Frances McDormand, Nomadland, is going to open the New York Film Festival online. We were talking about Sundance or Toronto, whatever. This is New York Film Festival online. I forgot to mention during our conversation about the Emmys that Lynn Shelton got a posthumous nomination for her work on Little Fires Everywhere. So that is really good. Okay, I'm sorry, I have to go back to real estate for a second. The Chateau Marmont.
Oh, yes.
Right? Legendary, historic place in Los Angeles, has a ton of Hollywood history. Lindsay Lohan lived there. John Belushi died there. somewhere takes place there. You know, you go to the lobby, you will see people hanging out. It's like, you know, the celebrity hangout, you know, junkets happen there.
Where Jim Morrison fell out the window.
Who was that?
What?
Didn't Jim Morrison fall out a window there? Was that?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That terrace on the like penthouse apartment a room you've seen in a gajillion movies, including Myra Breckenridge. I interviewed Johnny Knoxville there. Yeah.
Did you guys do tequila shots?
We did not. Looking back, perhaps I should have.
It's a thing one does with Johnny Knoxville. So anyway, Andre Ballas, the hotelier here in LA, is turning it into a exclusive, private, members-only club, supposedly because of COVID. Because if it's private and exclusive, then we can keep track of who all is coming in and out, and we can keep track of who's safe, and we won't let any of the riffraff in with their germs. It's a tragedy. It's a beautiful, gorgeous, chateau, in the Hollywood Hills. And it's so historic. Just, it's a beautiful building.
And just down Sunset, you have another schwanky private thing, the
Soho House.
The Soho House, yeah.
Well, but there's a few hotels in New York that are those types of hotels that are like private club type things, and there's like the Athletic Club or something like that, or Tennis Club. I know that there'll be listeners who will or viewers who will tell me about it. The name escapes me, but I know that there's a few places like that in New York that have been around for a while, and I'm a little surprised that it's taken that long for that to hit this kind of news. But I could see the appeal of that with the Marmont, or as the dude would say, nice marmot.
Nice marmot, dude. So okay, what else do I have for you? Okay, Madonna. Did you guys see what Madonna did this week? Madonna posted the video from that wacky Houston doctor who was touting the benefits of hydroxychloroquine as a COVID remedy, but also she believes in alien DNA and demon sperm.
Yeah.
And it's wacky. So Trump has posted this, Don Jr. has posted this, and Madonna increasingly is posting some fringy things, including on her Instagram, she posted this video from this woman, and then Instagram blurred it because it was contrary to their terms of like misinformation, and then she just took it down.
Madonna, back when she lived on this planet, was at one point a vocal activist in the early years of the AIDS pandemic, when celebrities weren't talking about it and the government wasn't spending enough money on it. She was one of the people who stepped up because she came out of the sort of New York East Village scene. She saw what was going on. She had a big gay fan base from the very beginning and was very vocal about this when it was not a popular subject. Now she's fucking crazy, and she needs to stop it. That's all I have to say about that.
She's been detached from reality for a while. Speaking of social media, David Duke has been permanently banned from Twitter. Finally, they're finally taking a stand on the former KKK leader.
How bad do you have to be,
right, to
get banned from Twitter?
Right? Think about all the crazy racist shit that's out there. David Duke finally crossed the line. Yeah, so that's happened.
Oh, them Dukes.
Let's talk about, have you guys seen there's this investigation going on and lots of stories coming out about the Ellen DeGeneres show? Let's talk about this. There's a big story in BuzzFeed that came out today about how like some of the top producers there have for years perpetuated this culture of sexual abuse and harassment and just an uncomfortable work environment and intimidating alternately through like being handsy or through fear. One of the executive producers supposedly has, asked underlings to perform sexual favors for him. And supposedly Ellen didn't know any of this, and she is, removed from it. Although, her brand is like kindness and love, and appalled by it.
Yeah. Problem number one is that she is, if you ask anybody who's worked for her, a terrible, terrible person to work for or be around. So while she might not have known what was going on, she probably was not the kind of person who runs a ship that is made of compassion, and also probably not somebody that anybody felt comfortable going to say, hey, by the way, this is happening.
Right. When you get the
So-
notes all the time that are like, don't look her in the eye, don't talk to her unless she talks to you. It's like, what is this?
Yeah.
The fucking queen? Like,
No, and that's just scratching the surface. I mean, like she
Right.
is. I've heard just like you live here. Somebody said like you live here long enough, you learn what streets you can park on, and you hear all the terrible stories about Ellen. So. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, she might not have directly known what was going on, but I'm sure that like she hired people who got stuff done and she didn't care how they did it or what was required to make that happen. And if you were under a certain like level in the pecking order, she gave two shits about whether or not you were having a happy work environment.
Yeah,
So I'm not
part of it,
shocked.
Part of it is that some of the employees, there's like 36 employees who have these claims over the years. And they said that, yeah, they just felt like there was absolutely nobody to go to.
Yeah.
There's nobody to report this to, that nobody would listen.
Right.
So, but separately from this BuzzFeed article, Warner Media already was doing an investigation of the show for racist and misogynist comments that have been made over the years. And so it's all contradictory to the, the happy dancing persona that she puts on display.
The best thing that can happen, I got to tell you, the best thing that can happen is that people are willing to go to the press because, lest any of us forget, HR departments are there to protect the company.
Yes.
Right.
True.
And so, when they're paying someone to be the third party investigators,
that's what they're meant to do. Yeah.
That's what they're meant to do.
I mean, but even though like her brand is niceness, but like there's such a cruel streak to her stuff. The way that she likes to scare guests and the way that she like has these game shows where she's really humiliating people and putting them through all these really terrible paces to like get to whatever the prize is at the other end. And then that Netflix special where, she basically talked about like how great it was to be a billionaire and then whined about how like when she came out, her career dipped for a couple of years. Like there's a lot happening there. There's a lot to unpack with Ellen.
Yes, we will follow that. Speaking of people with an impenetrable brand, seemingly, Oprah has, for the first time in 20 years, put somebody else on the cover of her magazine.
Yes.
And that is Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
For the first time in 20 years, Oprah herself is not the cover model, but she has Breonna Taylor's image there and has written about how moved she has been about what happened to this young woman and how there has been no one's been arrested still for the killing of Breonna Taylor. So
did you guys see Betty Gilpin's like
Yes.
Emmy announcement statement? That was genius, I thought. And speaking of Oprah, she's also got a new interview show coming up on Apple TV Plus.
Oh, there you go. I know you guys don't care about sports, but whoever does the Tampa Bay Rays social media on their Twitter feed, last week they wrote, "It's opening day, which means it's a great day to arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor."
Nice.
Which is shocking from a baseball team. Okay, let me get into baseball really fast, if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, how many positive tests are happening? What's going on?
Oh my God, like baseball is done essentially. I mean, so like 17 Marlins players have tested positive.
Jesus.
Because Florida. That's the first thing. But there have been all these ripple effects to how many players, really that's the main team that's tested positive. But I guess now some St. Louis Cardinals players also have. So the news today is that 15 upcoming MLB games have been postponed, involving the Marlins, Phillies, Yankees, Nationals, Orioles, Blue Jays, Brewers, and Cardinals. Right? We are a week into this experiment, and it's already totally collapsed.
So maybe let's not reopen the schools this fall. What do you say?
Right, there's that. Well, our schools are not reopening. All LA County schools are beginning online because we are a county that is one of the watch counties.
Right, but is OC still going to plan to open? Weren't they?
I don't know. I don't know. I think they're also one of the counties that, like, the vast majority of California are all the counties on the list that are the watch counties. So I think Orange County is not either. But Palos Verdes being a smaller part of all of larger LA County, they're trying to figure out a way to appeal to have a hybrid. Anyway, it's not going to happen. Other sports news. Basketball began just in the last couple of days, what they've called bubble ball in Orlando. All the teams went down to Orlando. They quarantined for like 2 weeks. Last night, the Lakers played the Clippers and won. So that is beginning. NHL is coming back in a couple of days. They're essentially picking up with what would be the playoffs. and they've got a bunch of games. And so because, of course, there can be no fan experience, instead of having 20 cameras covering every game, they have like 32 cameras all over the ice. So some really cool, different perspectives.
And every player's wearing a GoPro.
That'd be amazing. I'd totally watch that. There's like a puck cam.
That'd be
actually,
dizzying. I would watch that.
That would be dizzying. I don't think we need the puck cam. But they're trying to start these sports back up, and they're trying to have the crowd noise pumped in and music, and they're trying to make it normal without any actual human beings. The thing with basketball is interesting, you guys, and from a sound design perspective, perhaps you might appreciate this. Like when it's timeout and the coaches are talking to their team about like, what play to run next, or, who should inbound the ball or whatever.
They're not that far from each other.
You can totally hear them, right?
And there's no noise, right? Usually it's like cheerleaders are out there and they're pumping music or they're doing T-shirt cannons.
Right.
Like none of that exists, so everybody can hear everything, and that includes like shouting, talking trash, and profanities.
Right.
It's going to be cool.
Playing in a library. Now, are the players in the NBA, at least, are they safer than the MLB players are? Is the bubble working?
It's a contact sport.
That's the thing.
Much more
and
so
no,
than
because
baseball
because people were breaking quarantine.
Oh, I know. I was watching Desus and Mero. They were ragging on some of the, but no, but so far nobody's tested positive. Those.
I don't know. Lou Williams from the Clippers left campus to go to a strip club called Magic City. And so he had to be quarantined afterwards. So this
and not even a drive-through strip club?
This just began last night, though. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen once the games begin? In earnest, it took MLB a week to fall apart.
This is never going to be over.
And there's that pro football player who was a practicing doctor that basically said, "No, I'm not playing this season." Right? I can't remember his name, but I think he's in Kansas City, maybe.
There's a bunch of baseball players who said, "I'm not playing." Like
but I mean NFL players. Oh. This is a pro NFL player who's already, and we're not even close to, or well, sort of. We're a few weeks out from NFL starting, and this guy basically was like, "Nope."
How many things do we have to prematurely reopen and launch and then immediately go, oops, bad idea, and then backpedal? Like, why not just not do it? How about that? How about we not reopen the thing?
It's a bummer.
Because it's not going to, I mean, look, like, I'm stating the obvious, right? The people in charge that would be behind that, like one of their own, Herman Cain,
I was just about to say Herman Cain.
And that's not going to stop anyone. Like the people that are like, oh, we still got to go ahead. Like,
nope.
Okay.
You just led me to my next thing, Matt.
Welcome to late stage capitalism, where we are all collateral damage. We are all negligible, and we are all acceptable losses.
Well, there's also, we have the death cult. So Herman Cain is dead because Herman Cain refused to wear a mask. Because Herman Cain insisted on going to a Trump rally where they didn't want anybody wearing masks. And
kept trumpeting what a hoax the whole thing was. Did you guys see the guy who's running for some Republican office in Colorado who's posted a picture with his son who plays high school football? And he's like, my son should be able to play. And if he does, well, it's okay because in the afterlife we'll get the glory. And it's like, oh, what are you doing?
Herman Cain was 74. Herman Cain overcame cancer but died of Trump.
All those years of Sarah Palin and the fucking death panels. Remember that?
Yeah.
And they're the ones who we now have hospitals where they literally have to sort of triage and be like, well, do you have a chance or not? Not, then to the refrigerated truck with you. That's where we are right now, because we keep reopening these things because the people who need to be making money off of us want to do that rather than have the government actually pay us to stay home and kill this thing before it, kills all of us. But that we can't do that.
Well, I don't want to go too far down this road, but did you guys see the big story in Vanity Fair yesterday about how Jared Kushner was beginning to oversee a nationwide testing plan and then really quickly scuttled it because one of the things was because it was hitting
blue states harder. Yes,
that it was hitting blue states harder in the beginning. Anyway, so that's a whole other thing.
The testing was going to be more prevalent, or that the disease was hitting blue states harder?
Jared was overseeing his own shadow COVID fight committee, and it was billionaire businessmen friends of his, and they were trying to put together a plan to have nationwide testing. And then very quickly it was just gone because people realized on the political side, this is hitting blue states harder first, back in the beginning. Remember, like
Right.
New
So
York,
people,
Washington.
I mean, by hitting,
California.
more people are getting ill in blue stress.
So why test them? So why not? And then
Yeah,
blame
that's
It's not
the
good for
governors,
it's not good for the re-election campaign.
and then blame the governors of those states for not doing your job and letting your people get sick. Anyway, so that's a whole other, I don't want to get down that road, but it's relevant to what we're talking about. Since we're on people who died.
Yes.
Olivia de Havilland.
Olivia de Havilland.
So sad, but what a life. She was 104.
Yes.
She had just turned 104. And there's some really cool picture of her at 103 still riding her bike.
Yes.
So I think
Go
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for our Patreon next week, Alonso, are we not talking about doing an Olivia de
Choice of
Havilland
Olivia de
film?
Havilland films? Yeah, I think that's a good idea because there's quite a few I've not seen. So
there's so many I've not seen, and it's embarrassing. I had asked Ben if he would like to join us to talk about Olivia de Havilland's legacy, and Ben is unavailable.
Ah, well. Yeah, no, she was, one of the great stars of the studio era, and if living well is the best revenge, then she got the very best revenge,
right?
Because she had a great life, and she had a great long life, and she outlived her nemesis Joan Fontaine, her sister. She lived long enough to tell Louis B. Mayer to stick it and to sue Ryan Murphy. So not a lot of people really can claim that kind of legacy, but obviously leaves behind like an extraordinary body of work, very, very a legendary actress. So,
yes, so
that is a sad loss.
Yeah, we will have a bevy of choices for you guys
for sure.
And next month.
And then this morning, Alan Parker died.
I was going to mention that.
The great Alan Parker, who I think of him as being one of the last of the kind of Howard Hawks school of filmmakers who could just do any genre and usually, like more often than not, get away with it and do it right and do it well. And he made the kind of sort of not gigantic movies that are harder and harder to come by these days.
Right. No, not unlike Joel Schumacher, who we recently talked about. I mean, when you look at some of the best known films he did, Fame, Pink Floyd, The Wall, The Madonna Evita. So those are some of his musicals, but also like Midnight Express and Shoot the Moon and Bugsy Malone.
and The Commitments and Angel Hearts, like all kinds of different stuff. Yeah, he was extraordinary.
Yes. Matt, I saw you.
Yeah, what's interesting when you talk about a guy like that, like a Howard Hawks who can bounce from different genres pretty seamlessly, it makes me think of like, there's a lot of TV directors who do that these days, right? Because we talk about often like within a series, a showrunner is really overseeing the tone of a show, but you do have, somebody's directing those episodes, and there's in-demand directors that'll bounce from show to show, and they don't necessarily leave their stamp on it, but they work well, right?
Sure.
And I always think, I wonder if how much of the same skill set that is for somebody, like a Parker.
No, absolutely. I mean, plus
pointless
the whole
rabbit hole. Sorry.
No. I mean, the whole half hour versus 1 hour, those are two very different animals in terms of the pacing and, that kind of stuff. So no, I think you're right. I think that's a skill that is probably more welcome in television, where people are asked to do more different things, as opposed to movies where once you've hit in a certain, area, they just want to keep you in that area unless you have the clout to be like, no, I want to go do this other thing.
And finally, this week, we lost Regis Philbin. He was 88. Everyone's got a story about how lovely he was and how that, boisterous, congenial personality that you see on TV is who he was off camera as well. And Reed was 88.
Yeah. And talk about like somebody who gives lie to the notion of there are no second acts in American lives. Like, he was a guy who had a big career in like sort of early television, kind of became the butt of the joke when this thing about Joey Bishop, like, was he Joey Bishop's Ed McMahon or something for a while? I forget the story here, but anyway, he was kind of a has-been, and then he came rocketing back, and like, between the morning talk show and Millionaire, like he became, super hot shit late in life. So yeah, he bounced back. Like Olivia de Havilland, a survivor, Regis Philbin.
There you go. Reg was beloved. So anyway, that's all my news for you. A very busy news day.
Yes.
Yeehaw. All right, so we got plenty of reviews coming up, so we hope you'll stick around for that. In the meantime, like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We've got lots of fun exclusives over there, including our TV recaps. We have some interesting series on the horizon we're looking at, and this week we're talking about the Shudder exclusive Host, a movie that was filmed entirely on Zoom and in quarantine.
One last story we forgot.
What?
Bryan Cranston.
What's Bryan Cranston?
What?
Bryan Cranston had said that a while back he had COVID-19 and is now donating his serum.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I heard Mel Gibson and Joe Bob Briggs both brought it up after the fact that they'd had it a while back. But I had not heard about Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, Cranston did. Yeah, and it made me, you guys probably saw me post this on Facebook. I started thinking, I'm like, why haven't we given COVID-19 to... from the Rolling Stones.
Keith Richards. Yeah, I saw your tweet about that.
Give it to Keith Richards, right? Because he's unkillable, and then use his serum.
There you go.
That's the cure, right?
What I was thinking about today was when I was a kid, television was plastered with public service announcements, you know, like don't pick up blasting caps and keep taking your blood pressure medication even after your blood pressure goes down.
Yeah, look like blasting caps are just lying around.
Pick up blasting caps.
Look,
Alonso's from Texas.
I grew up in Georgia. There were ads about this. I don't know if it was like in the 60s or 70s that there was a problem, but I remember seeing ads about this. But anyway, it's like where are the wear a fucking mask ads? We need them.
We had PSAs about don't climb trees that were too near power lines, and so. There's a line that my brother and I constantly like. It's this kid's like Billy Wilson, tree climbing expert, and he like does this whole thing. He's like this 14-year-old, and then he's like, "But if you hit one, if you get on a branch too close to a wire, you can hit that wire, and that can hurt. It may even kill you." And so to this day, my brother and I like that could hurt. It may even kill you.
The more you know.
Exactly. Don't pick up plastic caps.
Right. If you
it was apparently a thing. I don't know why.
If you learn one thing from our show today.
Yes, do not. Also, wash your hands and wear a mask. Bye. All right. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. See you next time. Bye.